get this job without this ID. So that need kept coming back repetitively. And our business manager at the time said, wait a minute, this is what we're hearing the most of. This is a big need in our community. How do we make this happen? So he reached out to members of the church who he knew would have a passion for this type of mission work. And they said, okay, so anybody that comes on Tuesdays and Thursdays, we will give them a voucher to go get their birth certificate and go get their an ID. And it started off in one little office space with two or three volunteers. Um, and each week it continued to grow and grow and grow until they were kind of like they didn't have enough space in that little room to accommodate all the people that were showing up. And again, this was word of mouth. It was, hey, come to Westminster, they'll help you get your ID so you can get that job or get that, housing that you've been waiting to get. And and lo and behold, here we are in 2025, and we are just as busy, and we have over 25 volunteers. And it's grown like just unbelievably. I don't think anybody expected the ID ministry to be what it is today, and it's the biggest mission of our church. It's something I'm very honored to be a part of.
Well, that's nice to hear. Thank you. And do we know in our community in the Dayton area, are there others that are doing this thing, or are you without any competition?
We are the only ones doing it right now.
Okay.
About a year and a half ago, Jeremiah's letter, they were doing it. So it was both of us doing it. And if we couldn't help someone, we would send them to Jeremiah's letter. If Jeremiah's letter couldn't help them, they would send them our direction. We worked very closely and communicated about serving the community. And it was a shame when they were unable to continue.
Well, that's good. And we say ID, and there's a lot of different forms of ID.
Mhm.
But of course, in order to access many things that some of us might not even think of very frequently, you do have to have an ID. If you think for a minute how many times you have to show that, how many times you have to pull that out of your wallet or your purse to show it to people. You need an ID to really function at all in our community. I can't imagine how people manage without it. Can you talk a little bit about how broad this is?
This is extremely broad because we it's ID ministry, and when it started, we were providing vouchers for a state ID and a birth certificate. And as you may know, state IDs are free. The state of Ohio made those free almost 2 years ago. So, but which is wonderful. Everybody that's over 17 can get an ID. However, you cannot get that ID, state ID, without your birth certificate. And you have to have your birth certificate along with a few other items ID, like proof of your address, and a social security card. So we're providing vouchers for birth certificates so people can go get that state ID, which is free. That makes sense. Um, but you can't sign up for housing. You can't sign up for any kind of public assistance without a state ID. And you don't get a state ID without your birth certificate. And for housing, not only do the families need an ID, but they need a birth certificate for everyone in that family that's going to be living in that home, um, which makes it very difficult for families and that's just to get signed up to get on the list to
Right,
wait.
right.
We see people every week who, have just gotten a job, but they can't start until they have that birth certificate. because the employer needs to see the birth certificate before they
How
can.
much is a birth certificate now?
Well, in Ohio, in Ohio, it's $23, but we help all 50 states, and they range anywhere from some states are as high as $35, some are as low as $9. So it's kind of all over the place, all over
Yeah.
the map. We also help people who were born abroad on a military base. Um, so a lot of people, we get that question a lot. Hey, my parents were in the military. I was born in Germany. Can you help me out? Absolutely, we can. We've got the know-how to do that. But I think having ID just opens so many doors and so many for so many people. And I feel that our ID ministry is the key to opening those doors. You're coming to us, getting that voucher, getting that birth certificate, getting the ID is opening more doors for them.
That's really significant. You're almost a non-person without an ID to prove who you are
Mhm,
nowadays.
mhm.
Yeah.
You have to prove you were born.
Yeah, exactly. And where you were born and under what circumstances you were born. So
Hmm.
yes,
Hmm.
that's quite a lot. You mentioned that you will help people no matter where they were born within the United States or among with on a military base. It's
Correct.
part of has that relationship to the U.S. What, talk a little bit about how this actually works. If a person who's viewing this program tonight is thinking about coming down
Mhm.
to the church and you can give us the address. Are there specific instructions on a website or anything that people should read or could read before they come down?
Yes, they can absolutely go to Westminster's website, which is westminsterdayton.org. Go to ID Ministry under missions. And it gives all the details as what door to come in, of the church, because the church is rather large and there's lots of different entrances, but it'll give them the details on what door to enter, what time to come, which is Wednesday between 10 and 12:30. And we do ask, if at all possible, that they bring something that has their name on it. It could be a piece of mail. It can be something from a doctor's visit. But we also understand many of these people don't have a single piece of paper that has their name on it. And that's okay. We just if they happen to have it, we would love for them to bring it.
That
Just
helps get started, doesn't it?
right. It really does. But they don't have to if they have nothing. That's not going to prevent us from helping them.
Okay. And if a viewer tonight is going to come down to work to get an ID, are they going to see you, Jenny Gross, or
Yes, they will. I'm there
okay,
every Wednesday. Um, I kind of oversee the volunteers to make sure that, they have what they need. And I spend a lot of time with our folks that come in for IDs on Wednesdays. I like to help them with other issues or problems, concerns they may be having, make sure that they're hooked up with the right resources to help meet the needs that they're having. Um, Oftentimes, someone born from another state, each state not only charges a different amount, but they also require a different, something different to get the birth certificate. Ohio and Kentucky are the two best states because they don't require an ID to get your birth certificate,
oh
which is wonderful. I
yeah,
think, and I think West Virginia is one of those states, but every other state, guess what they require? An
okay,
ID.
all right, very good. Um, I'm receiving a message from our chat, as I promised our viewers we would do, that an elderly woman has called that she doesn't have a birth certificate or a driver's license. Is there anything that, well, she's asking if the Ombudsman office can help her. Well, we can, but we're programs about you, and so we want you to speak to that woman. I think we are familiar with cases where people have almost never had a birth certificate for various and sometimes unusual reasons. But would you like to address that caller's question, please?
Oh, yes, absolutely. Please, please come this Wednesday or any Wednesday to the church. It's located at 125 North Wilkinson Street, um, between 10 and 12:30. And we will be happy to help you get that birth certificate because you'll need to have that before you can get a driver's license or an ID, depending on what you want. But we will work with you to get that birth certificate and help you and give you the information you'll need to get the ID.
Okay, so that's good. Just come down, bring yourself, and bring something with your name on it if you happen to have it, and bring it down and talk to some of the volunteers and to Jenny Gross, and they'll
Mhm.
get started on doing that. How long does the process usually take, Jenny?
I would say, and it varies, but I would say once you've gotten into the door and signed in, it probably takes a 15 to 20 minutes. Um, it's sometimes a little bit shorter if it's a slower day, but I would say average 15 to 20 minutes from start to finish.
Okay.
Mhm.
And for the actual execution, the payment, a voucher is going to have to be provided to another place that then adds another kind of layer of
Mhm.
work that has to be done and has to be followed up on. Please talk a little bit about how that works.
Okay. So once they've come in and they've checked in, um, and then they are ready to receive that voucher for the birth certificate. If they're born in Ohio, the voucher will be made out to Montgomery County Public Health. And we direct them to the Ribble Building on 4th and Main, where they can go directly with that voucher right then and there, which we encourage them to do, and get that birth certificate. And then they can take the birth certificate straight over to the B&B in the county building, as long as they have the other documents, proof of address, and go get their free state ID. It can be all done in one day. We're kind of centrally located.
Absolutely.
Public health is 2 blocks one way, the county building is 2 blocks the other way. So we're right in the
Very,
middle.
very convenient. Even in this cold time of year,
It is.
you can get this done by don't even have to get on buses in between these places because they're just
No,
a couple of blocks away. Yeah.
correct.
Because there are many buildings that one can't even get into if you don't have some form of ID. Can't
The,
even enter a building. Yeah.
right. So the federal building you cannot get into where Social Security is.
Yes. And so
That's
a lot of people are going to need that. We have another caller, a person that is an immigrant viewing this show, just ask if it's possible for them to get help as well.
unfortunately, we can only get birth certificates for those who are born in the United States.
Okay,
Um, we're not able to get that information from the other countries.
right. That's a whole, I would imagine that that's an entirely different and expanded program
Yes.
to do that. I mean, it's one thing to understand what the requirements are in all 50 states, which can often be researched, and what offices in each of the states do this. But going abroad opens up uh, a whole different situation
Right.
for a volunteer program to deal with. I mean, immediately you're looking at other languages
Right.
and
It's
other
above,
currencies. And
like you
yeah,
said, it's above what we can do, above our scope.
Yeah,
of
exactly.
expertise.
Okay. Well, thank you to that caller. I'm sorry that we're not the resource for you at least not this year.
Not
So
this year.
who knows, about that. Um, can you say a little bit from your experience in doing this? How do people learn that this is available? And how does word like this spread without any advertising? There's no big sign out there in front of the building that anybody driving down the street can see. And we hope this program will provide some expanded knowledge. But how do the folks that you're serving, how do they self-report about
Right.
how they came to be there?
Social media. There's a Facebook page, Help in Dayton.
Okay.
And so a lot of people have posted about coming to Westminster and their experience and, have shared that on Facebook. So I was shocked. Probably about 2 years ago, they were saying, "Oh, I heard about you on Facebook." I'm like, "Facebook? Didn't know we were on Facebook." But this is a, kind of a grassroots thing for the community to learn about different resources. So Facebook is obviously one of them. The United Way information, the 211 number, we're listed with them. Um, and then word of mouth, just sharing their experiences with family members and friends who may need it. But I've also worked on building a lot of different relationships with community resources, the shelter, the Women and Family Shelter, Homeful. They're very aware of our program and what we do. And we've also been building relationship with various treatment centers. There's a
Okay.
lot of people, going through treatment, different kinds of treatment, um, and case managers on their behalf looking for resources. And one of those resources those case managers have been looking for are access to getting their birth certificate so they can get a state ID because they need both before they complete their program,
Okay.
to get a job, to get housing. Um, so there are a lot of, and it's kind of like a domino effect. Once one or two of these different programs have found out about our ministry, they've shared those with other programs that they know. Or, we've got there's a rehabilitation center that has locations in Fairborn and Dayton and Xenia. Well, the Dayton office was using our ministry, and then they have shared it to the Fairborn and Xenia offices. So they're bringing their people to us on Wednesdays to help them get. It's kind of just word of mouth, social media, and people just calling the church and asking, what kind of services does Westminster provide? I need help with this. Can you help?
Yes. Good. And then also, the school-age children are
Mhm.
in need of birth certificates for many programs, are they not?
Yes. So July and August are probably two of our busiest months because to be enrolled in school, to get enrolled in preschool, um, you have to have a birth certificate. So, we are just really, that's one of our busy months, parents trying to get their kids enrolled in school. Um, they also need IDs to play sports.
Ah, one
Um,
doesn't always think of that.
Where you don't think about, why does my 14-year-old need an ID? Well, they need this for this to play sports. Where's my birth certificate? I don't know. So they need that birth certificate so they can go get that child the ID for sports. Or the summer jobs. There's a lot of these young teenagers are trying to work, in the summers, getting their
Right,
first job. They have to provide an ID and a birth certificate.
right.
So, there's a lot just simple things like that. You don't think about what you need it for. And what I always like, what I tell the people that I see on Wednesdays is you don't need your birth certificate till you need it. And then you need it. You need it yesterday.
Yeah,
Um, and they're like, yeah, and many of them have never had a birth certificate or it's been, lost for years. But
right,
now you have to have it.
right. Every time a family moves or changes location in some way, there's a danger of losing track of some of those documents. So I'm sure you all spend some time counseling them. We don't need to see you again for this same voucher that we're
Yeah.
giving you now. You need to find a safe place to put this. And
Right.
that's hard for young people, not thinking about, not being
It is.
conscious of how important these things are until, like you said, when you need it, you need it. So I'm
Right.
sure you tell them a lot about that. So even for children, do you run into very many problems about the names, or does that kind of get dealt with at public health office or something? Like many of us may be known by a nickname and may not have realized, that actually our legal and birth certificate name is slightly different or spelled different or something like that. Do you ever run into those types of issues?
Occasionally, yes, we do, and I work pretty closely with them to get it straightened out with either our county or whatever state that they were born in. Um,
Okay.
Not as often as you might think, but yeah, we do those come up a lot.
Right, right. That's good to know. And of course, when families come in with a need for that identification, you touched on this a bit earlier, that they may begin to discuss other needs that they have once they think, oh, good, I'm getting this I'm getting this together. What else can I take care of
Right.
today? Would you like to share a little bit with the viewers about, how that works?
Right. So, and that's one of the times where I will sit down and talk individually with a family or a client, because maybe they've shared with the volunteer, hey, my family's in a crisis and we're going through, some really rough times. I'll pull them aside and make an assessment on what their needs are. And then we have lots of resources available. We have flyers, we have handouts that we can give them and direct them to those resources to get the help, sometimes even making phone calls on their behalf, just depending on that client. So, and for those who just maybe are coming to get their voucher, that's where all those resources are. And I try to update like all the different food pantries and when the big food giveaways are going to be, and utility information and clothing, and I try to stay up to date with all the most recent resources in our community to help our clients we see on Wednesdays.
Well, that's actually quite a very big job because we're fortunate in Montgomery County that we do have a lot of resources. So it's tough to keep track of, where all the food pantries are and where
Right.
all it's almost like you're serving as a little information and referral, little
Yeah.
United Way INR kind of thing. So that's a lot to keep track of. So
It can be for sure. For
yes,
sure.
yes, exactly. Can you think it maybe I don't know, varies with the time of the year, but what can you think of are the most frequently suggested or asked for areas for direction or assistance once the ID matter is handled, once the voucher item is handled? What do you see as some of the most common needs that people present?
I think clothing is been the most common asked about. Where can I get some free clothing, or where can I get clothing? And then food.
Okay.
That's pretty close, but I think more clothing.
That's very much basics, isn't it?
Hmm.
Yeah,
Hmm.
a lot. How many volunteers are involved in this program?
So we have a total of 25, but each Wednesday we have 6 volunteers, and then myself there to assist. And we can see, anywhere, I think the average is 70 to probably 70 people each Wednesday that we serve, in about a 2.5 hour time period.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes we've served more than that, but that's probably about the average.
Okay, all right. And do you have very many repeat visitors that come and they
Yes.
bring maybe one child one week and the next week they think, well, now this is coming up for, my second child, or say, how does that work?
So when the ministry first started, and looking back at the records, you could clearly see, there wasn't really a limit on how many times we would help them. If they came, they needed it, we showed grace. And we still have that same philosophy, but um, just to kind of give you an idea how this has grown. So in that first year in 2011, I think it was around the budget was around $16,000 on IDs and birth certificates. In 2024, we were, I think I was told it was about 62,000. So that a year just providing vouchers for a birth certificate. So that's quite a big growth. So we had to decide we need to put some um, limitations on how many times that we can help a family. So we do have a limitation. Um, However, we are a ministry and we want to show grace as many times as we can, but we do have to, unfortunately, we do have to turn some people away. We try
Okay.
not to, um, but we also have to be good stewards of the gift that we have, because we want to continue to help the people in need.
Mhm. We have a caller that is a veteran who has is challenged with mobility issues and may not be able to get to Westminster Church. What suggestion would you have for somebody uh, that's in that exact predicament?
I would ask that if they've got a family member, a close friend that they trust, or if they're working with someone from the VA's office, a case manager or a social worker, to reach out to me, call me, with, let me know that, hey, what the situation is. And with this person's permission, they could come down on his behalf, his or her behalf, to get the voucher for them. I would need to speak with the
Sure.
person, and then whoever would be coming on his behalf, and they would need to show ID. So we have done that before for in situations similar to this person. So please call me at the church and we can definitely work something out.
Oh, that's good. That's wonderful that you can deal with a representative given all other circumstances that need to be
Right.
taken care of. Yeah.
Absolutely.
That,
We don't
that,
want someone not to get it because of that. We'll make it work.
okay. Very good. Very good, Jen. I'm so glad to hear that. It's nice to be able to be that accommodating because not everybody, uh, our bus service is one thing, but not
Right.
everybody can get to it if they're
Right.
off in a certain kind of area or whatever. It may not be as available to them as maybe to some other folks.
Hmm.
So you can accommodate that by using a representative, and that's a very, very good piece. I wanted to also ask about there are lots of other places that run into people who have an opportunity to help with some of this type of ID things. I mean, when people are released from jail or from prison, that are they released with any kind of ID from that setting?
So when they are released from prison, they are given a what we call a green card, and it does have their picture on it. Um, and they can take that card to the B&B and get an ID. They don't need their birth certificate for that. They can get an ID with that green release card.
Right.
That's only good for you know, 30 days.
Oh
Um,
dear.
so,
Gotta act
um,
fast.
right. So they've got to get out and then get to the B&B and get that ID. Um, so unfortunately, a lot of them, you know, aren't able to get there in time to get that ID. We've met with, some advocacy lawyers like, why can't they just get issued an ID when they leave, prison? That would make so much more sense because they also are given, I think, $50. So, you know, do they spend that on their driver's license or an ID? It just would make much more sense to get an ID, but that's not going to happen. That's kind of above. We've advocated, we've shared our concerns with people that were willing to hear us, but that hasn't changed. When they leave the county jail, they leave with whatever they get, like a face sheet, says that they were in jail. But that's not going to give them, that ID. They're still going to need to come here, get the birth certificate from us, get the voucher for the birth certificate, and then go get the ID. I feel like they're just obstacles. We look at it, these are individuals who are getting ready to start their new life, start over, and
Right.
hopefully take a new path. And we just want to support them. And unfortunately, when they're getting released from these places, there's not a lot of I'm not seeing a lot of it, honestly.
Okay.
Um, which again is unfortunate. But we look at it as like we are a safe place. We're going to greet you. We're going to show you grace, and we're going to hopefully, like I said, you have that key to unlock those doors to get started on the right path in the right direction.
Right. And as we've discussed in this program, everyone has to have an ID to get almost anything. You know, if you want a bank account, if you want, once you do get the job, you got to put the money somewhere and pay things with it that you have to do. So bank accounts, even, I mean, it's hard to think of anything you can do, without that
Right.
ID.
And so many people um, have got these bank accounts, but they've lost their ID, so they can't go to the bank to access their funds.
Okay.
And so they come to us like, I've got, money in my bank, but I can't get it out because I don't have my ID. And I
Okay.
can't get my ID because I don't have my birth certificate. And for some of these folks, it's not as big of a problem because if they were born in Ohio, they can go get that birth certificate that day, and then they can go to the bank and get their ID and then go to the bank. For people who are born in other states, they require an ID to get your birth certificate. So the people that are born in other states, I spend a lot of time with those folks trying to problem solve, what identification do you have? Luckily, most states will take secondary types of IDs. And each state, again, takes different things. Some will just say, if you can get this notarized, we'll accept that. Um, or do you have, your tax records from last year or, school records, a work ID? Sometimes we have to get really creative um, about how we can get this ID. So, or the birth certificate because they don't have an ID to get the birth certificate. I mean, it's just this. hamster wheel sometimes we're on.
Yes,
So I do spend a lot of time uh, trying to problem solve and talk to the folks about how to get that birth certificate from that other state.
I see. That can be quite a puzzle and a challenge in and of itself.
Oh, it is. It really is, and I just feel so bad for the frustration on their part. They just want that ID.
That's right. That's right. And all of these volunteers that come every week have a resource book, one big one that they can all look at to see, okay, this person was born in Nevada. What do we do here? Okay.
We have a big sheet that says, how much it costs, what are the requirements, where do we mail it to? And then we, print the forms out and it says what the secondary IDs are. And, we've been creative enough oftentimes to, um, when a client comes in and has nothing but says, I was born in Michigan, but my mom, she can request the ID, my birth certificate for me, so we, talk to the mom, get her information, and, we go that route. So we can be really creative, um, to make sure these clients get those birth certificates so they can get the ID.
Yeah.
Because
That's great, and to be commended. Another caller is asking that they're curious if the safety issue in today's problematic world, wanting to know if ICE agents have approached the church or come to the church trying to look for individuals or just people in general. Have you all had any experience with that?
no, fortunately, we have not had any ICE agents come to the church. No one's called about that. We haven't had any concern.
Well, somebody just did, so there's probably somebody else out there. But anyway, thank you for answering that you haven't had any of that to date. That's something to know about. As I said, things are happening all over.
Right.
And what can you describe for us what maybe one of your most unusual challenges was in this ministry?
Oh my gosh. Um, I guess it would probably go back to someone that was born in another state. And when I say he had nothing to prove who he was. I mean, absolutely. He had gone through a terrible situation. He was homeless. He had actually been put out of the shelter and had nothing. I mean, nothing
He
that we
could give
could
you
give.
nothing to go on.
Nothing to go on. I'm like, and we called the state. I called the state on like advocating on his behalf, saying, you know, my credentials, I'm a licensed social worker. I run this program. What can I do? Can I get this for him? Um, and, after lots of talking, I was able to write a letter. I had to take it to a lawyer's office, get it notarized by these lawyers,
Yeah.
um, send it in. And it took about 5 weeks, but we finally got this gentleman's birth certificate for him. And it was just, he came in and celebrated and, just danced and, he was so appreciative. And it was just, it allowed him to get into the housing he's been wanting to get into. He'd been on a wait list and all he needed was this birth certificate so he
Oh,
could move to his
that's a
home.
wonderful story, very rewarding. Yeah,
It
you
really
should be
is.
proud to share that around. That would be
Thank
very
you.
good. And of the all the volunteers that come down, there's so much really education or experience, it seems like, that is built up there with the volunteers participating in this in this ministry. Do you have much turnover in your volunteer base, or do many people stay with it for some time?
All the volunteers honestly stay with it for years, almost until they're unable to, physically or, something comes up and they just can't continue. And we don't have to recruit. I don't have to go to the congregation and say, who wants to join ID ministry? They come to us. I get an
Okay.
email and say, I was been thinking about ID ministry. I heard the presentation. You know, well, how do I get involved? What can I do? And we actually have, I think, three volunteers who are not members of
Oh yeah.
Westminster. They're of other faiths, but they had heard about it, or a friend told them about it. One lady heard me speak at the League of Women Voters and said, "I want to be part of this."
Nice. That's
Um,
nice.
so it's really, I love that. I love that. You know,
I'm sure you do. And it's wonderful that people are so willing. There are people who do understand what it means if they are without an ID. I think any one of us who has um, unfortunately been robbed, having a purse snatched or something, and there it's just all gone. There's a huge value in making copies of a lot of these things to put in a safe place in case it gets lost or damaged or destroyed, because accidents happen, and that's
it does. It does. And I know we weren't going to talk about this, but I wanted to mention our document storage ministry real quick.
oh, please do. That's fine.
Um, so, one of the ways we were trying to problem solve, like how do we keep these documents safe so we're not having all these repeats? And I found about a program in Texas, and I basically took what they were doing, and I thought, oh, I'll implement this here with ID Ministry, and it's our document storage, where we keep their original birth certificate, their social security card. We make a copy, they get the copy, we keep the original. We'll keep, divorce papers if we need to, anything personal, documents that you don't need until you need them. Um, and they come, we store them, we make copies, they get the copies, we keep the originals. And it's kind of like a bank, they deposit and withdraw as they need them. So I always tell folks, go use it for what you need it. Go show it to Job and Family Services, to get signed up for assistance, or the school to enroll, or to, housing, or your job, and then bring it back to us. Because none of those places will take a copy. They need to see the original.
Right.
And so show the original, let them make the copy, you bring it back, keep it in our safe, locked, secured, fireproof, waterproof filing cabinet. So that is available free of charge for anyone that wants to take advantage of it.
That's really good for people who may be on the move or a lot, or yeah,
Yes. And
or
and and we serve a lot of, transient, clients, homeless,
right,
homeless
who
folks.
are moving through different things.
Right.
Correct.
Right.
Um, we're not out of time, but we are using our time down here for our program to be able to talk about this. So why don't you give again some of the facts like phone number and address and how to get there, where it is, just so that anybody who missed that at the earlier part of the program can catch up with us on that now.
Sure. Okay, so it's Westminster Presbyterian Church. We're located at 125 North Wilkinson Street, Dayton, Ohio. The phone number is 937-223-7285. ID Ministry is open every Wednesday between 10 and 12:30. Come to the Perry Street side of the church, and you'll see signs. We have signs out. We also have a parking lot, a Westminster parking lot on First Street. Parking is free, and you'll see signs indicating that. Come to the Perry Street door, and we'll be happy to help you every Wednesday, 10 to 12:30.
Great. Thank you so much. And are there any other concluding remarks that you would like to make?
I just, Westminster, I just feel this ministry that Westminster has started is just a blessing to our community. And it just goes to show this is a need that has not gone away. It has only increased, especially with the recent laws and changing the real ID and the requirements. Um, and I think I said it earlier, but I really do feel honored to be part of this ministry, working with and helping these folks every single Wednesday that come through our doors. Because, we're seeing all kinds of people and all kinds of situations, and not always good situations. And
Right.
I'm glad that we can help them and get them started back on the right path.
Right. Well, thank you and to the community for the work that you're doing and all of your wonderful volunteers that are supporting you in that and reaching out on behalf of folks. So thank you very much for joining us tonight and joining me tonight and the viewers and giving us all of this information. And I hope that the viewers who are lucky enough not to need this, and I hope most of them are, but then at least if they know somebody who's in a situation without proof of identification, they can steer them in the right direction and get them to a resource that's not usually advertised or shouted about, but does a very good service. So thank you very much, Jenny, for leading that and for what you're doing with that. Thank you very much, and good night to the viewers, and thank you for watching our program this evening. Good night.